So, against my better judgment, I'm doing a Rise of Skywalker video. I know it's a terrible idea, but there's something that hasn't been going around too much, and I thought it needed to be said. When I went to go see the Rise of Skywalker, it was so much fun. There really isn't anything like going to see a Star Wars movie on its debut night. The energy is just through the roof, and no one can sit still. Everyone that I went to go see it with really had a great time, and I still feel that way. But that's not really what I wanted to say. What I'm about to say will probably upset some of you, and some of you are going to disagree, and some of you still won't understand, but that's okay. But here it is. The Rise of Skywalker was never going to be the perfect movie or the perfect ending that we all wanted. Ever. It just wasn't going to happen. That doesn't mean it can't be fun or enjoyable or emotional, which at its core all movies should be. It's just that it was never going to be that perfect, great ending that we all hope for.
Star Wars as a franchise has probably reached more people worldwide than any other movie franchise in the history of the world. It's been watched trillions and trillions of times. The cultural impact of Star Wars in today's society almost can't even be measured. How many millions of hours have been spent just making movies, books, comics, games, or whatever since 1977? Who knows? And moreover, how many times have people interacted with those things? Between 1977 and 2005, the world was treated to 28 years of the greatest space fantasy soap opera that will probably ever be told. When America is ultimately defeated by intergalactic aliens thousands of years from now, historians will write about four things: the revolution, jazz music, baseball, and Star Wars. Then, we were told we were getting more. A story with a beginning, a middle, and an end, and hundreds of other stories woven in between was getting 3 more movies. It was an improbable goal before that time, but then it happened. Obviously, for that reason alone, I think we can all be a little bit more grateful that we have 3 new saga films, but, whatever. But now it's all over. The Skywalkers have told their last chapter. But before we all saw The Rise of Skywalker, J.J. Abrams and Chris Terrio inherited a story that was supposed to be written by Colin Trevorrow, who had to follow up a movie full of twists and turns from Rian Johnson. And now we see where the problems start. Let's get into the heads of J.J. Abrams and Chris Terrio just for a minute. They've been told they're getting to write the final chapter of a history-altering saga that hundreds of millions of people adore. Not to mention, they have to make sure that the end of this saga doesn't completely undercut Revenge of the Sith or Return of the Jedi, which were also thought to be the last chapter of the franchise, while also giving the characters of this new trilogy a satisfying ending. So let's go over this again. J.J. Abrams and Chris Terrio had to write a story partially started by Colin Trevorrow, either of which had to follow up a movie full of twists and turns from Rian Johnson, and had to satisfy hundreds of millions of fans while staying true to the original 6 movies and give a satisfying ending to current characters. Got it? Okay, good. Now let's get to the hard part. When I watched the Rise of Skywalker documentary, I got the feeling that J.J. and Chris actually had a pretty good handle on the story. They knew that the first movie, The Force Awakens, was very much Han's movie. JJ made that perfectly clear. The second movie, The Last Jedi, was very much the Luke Skywalker movie. So this movie, The Rise of Skywalker, was very much going to be the... yeah.
Good evening, I'm Tom Yamas, in for David tonight, and we begin with the passing of a Hollywood legend and an American original. Carrie Fisher, whose role as Princess Leia in Star Wars vaulted her to pop culture immortality, died today in Los Angeles with her family by her side.
Carrie Fisher's passing was traumatic and devastating to those that knew her, and those of us that had watched her performances and felt like we knew her. But it came at the single most inopportune time. Now J.J. Abrams, Chris Terrio, and Lucasfilm had to make a movie revolving around one person, using only a few lines they had filmed from her from 2014 because they wanted to abide by the wishes of Carrie's family that they didn't want to use CGI to recreate her. Okay, one more time for everyone. J.J. Abrams and Chris Terrio had to write a story partially started by Colin Trevorrow, either of which had to follow up a movie full of twists and turns from Rian Johnson, and had to satisfy hundreds of millions of fans while also staying true to the original 6 movies and give a satisfying ending to current characters. But the main character they wanted it to be about passed away, and they had to use a dozen lines on very few takes that they recorded 6 years ago. Okay. Another moment from the Rise of Skywalker documentary that really stuck out to me was that J.J. Abrams and Chris Terrio had a particularly hard time writing the ending of this movie. One of their friends asked them while they were struggling if the reason they were having a hard time was because it was really hard for them, or they just didn't want to see a saga they loved since they were a kid to end. I'd imagine it was a little bit of both. I'm not going to go through everything again. So just go back and add on top of everything else, they loved these movies to death and didn't want to see them go. I graduated from Millersville University, go Marauders, with a degree in television broadcasting. In college, I studied movies, I studied television, I studied how to make both, how to write scripts, and how to tell stories. I've written scripts, I've acted out scripts, I made 4 seasons of a show, and I won awards for short films that I made with some teams. Even before college, I did all of that in high school. And even before all that, I love Star Wars, and my friends that will definitely be commenting on this video will back me up. With that being said, if you gave me a year and 2 of my friends that love and know Star Wars as much as I do, and know how to write a story, and every actor that Lucasfilm had, I couldn't do it. I wouldn't be able to. There's no way to wrap up 43 years of historic films. Well, let me rephrase that. There's no way to wrap up 43 years of historic films that every fan can be satisfied with, especially in today's clickbait-induced media climate. And I'm saying writing a finale is impossible when you have all the actors you want and you write the ending without inheriting it from anyone. It's easy to criticize. It's easy to say it had plot holes, or it was too fast, or it sucked. It's easy to say, well, just go there, or just do this. But it's not that easy. Everything in the script needs to work towards something. Every line has to mean something. Every minute of the movie must work towards something. I haven't heard anyone come up with something better than the Rise of Skywalker to end the saga. And guess what? Spoiler alert, no one will. The Rise of Skywalker was an impossible task. It was an impossible task before Colin Trevorrow was let go. It was impossible before The Last Jedi, and it was impossible before Carrie Fisher passed. But we still got it. We got a fast-paced, action-packed, and fun movie. We got the epic return of Emperor Palpatine and the tragic end of an original hero and a hero that could have been. But most of all, what we got was an ending that leaves us wanting more. Hats off to you, JJ and Chris, and everyone that worked on this movie. Thank you for an absolutely amazing ride.